Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast where we discuss important topics in a way that's easy to understand. Today, we're diving into the issue of waste and how we can all work together to reduce it. I'm your host, Daniel, and joining me is Salim.
Hi everyone, great to be here.
So, let's start by talking about what waste is and why it's a problem.
Waste is any material or substance that is discarded after being used. It can be anything from food scraps to old electronics. The problem with waste is that when we throw things away, they often end up in landfills, which take up a lot of space and can harm the environment.
That's right. And one way to reduce waste is by recycling. Can you explain what recycling is?
Recycling is when we take materials that we've used, like paper, plastic, or glass, and turn them into new products instead of throwing them away. For example, old newspapers can be recycled into new paper products, like notebooks or cardboard.
Recycling sounds like a great way to reduce waste. What are some other ways we can help?
Another way to reduce waste is by reusing items instead of throwing them away after just one use. For example, instead of using disposable plastic water bottles, we can use reusable ones that we can fill up again and again.
That's a simple but effective way to make a difference. Are there any other tips you have for our listeners?
Yes, one more tip is to try to avoid creating waste in the first place. This means being mindful of the things we buy and choosing products with less packaging or packaging that can be recycled. We can also try to buy things second-hand or borrow them from friends instead of always buying new.
Those are all great suggestions. It's clear that reducing waste is something we can all do to help the environment. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts?
I just want to encourage everyone to think about the impact their actions have on the environment and try to make small changes in their daily lives to reduce waste. Every little bit helps.
So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us as we delve into the world of waste. Welcome back, listeners. Let's continue our discussion on reducing waste. One important aspect we haven't touched on yet is the concept of composting. Can you explain what composting is and how it helps reduce waste?
Absolutely. Composting is a natural process where organic materials like food scraps and yard waste are broken down by bacteria and other microorganisms into nutrient-rich soil. Instead of throwing these organic materials in the trash where they would end up in landfills, we can compost them to create a valuable resource for our gardens and plants.
That sounds like a fantastic way to give back to the earth. And it's something that anyone can do, even if they don't have a big backyard. There are small-scale composting options available for people who live in apartments or urban areas.
That's right. There are composting bins and systems designed specifically for smaller spaces, like worm bins or compact compost tumblers. So, no matter where you live, you can still do your part to reduce waste through composting.
It's inspiring to see how many different ways there are to reduce waste in our daily lives. And each small action adds up to make a big difference. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Just that reducing waste is something we can all do, no matter who we are or where we live. By making conscious choices and being mindful of the impact of our actions, we can each play a part in creating a healthier, more sustainable world for ourselves and future generations.
One aspect of waste reduction that's gaining attention is the concept of zero waste. Can you explain what zero waste means and how it differs from the other methods we've discussed?
Of course. Zero waste is a lifestyle approach aimed at minimizing the amount of waste we generate as much as possible, with the ultimate goal of sending nothing to landfills or incinerators. It goes beyond just recycling and composting to focus on preventing waste in the first place through mindful consumption and lifestyle choices.
That sounds like a challenging but worthwhile goal. Can you give us some examples of how someone might embrace a zero-waste lifestyle in their day-to-day lives?
Sure. People practicing zero waste often prioritize buying products in bulk to reduce packaging, choosing reusable alternatives to single-use items like bags, bottles, and utensils, and repairing or repurposing items instead of throwing them away. They also pay attention to the life cycle of the products they buy, opting for items that are durable, repairable, and made from sustainable materials.
It's fascinating to see how individuals can make such a significant impact by making simple changes in their habits and choices. And while achieving zero waste may seem daunting, even small steps in that direction can make a difference.
Absolutely. It's all about progress, not perfection. Every little change we make adds up, and even if we never reach zero waste, striving for it helps us reduce our environmental footprint and live more consciously.
Well said. Thank you for sharing those insights. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Just that reducing waste isn't just good for the environment, it's also good for our wallets and our communities. When we reduce, reuse, and recycle, we're conserving resources, saving energy, and creating a healthier planet for future generations.
Thank you once again for joining me today, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Remember, the journey to reducing waste starts with a single step. Let's all take that step together and make a positive difference. Until next time, take care and keep striving for a cleaner, greener future.